Good evening, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of Sportszone. I'm your host, Ryan Baldwin. Let's dive right in. The UNT Mean Green football team lost another heartbreaker to Mizzou on the road, 48-35. And here to help me break down another tragic loss are my two analysts, Sam Mangan and Sean Smith. Gentlemen, how are we feeling today?
I'm doing the best I can right now.
Just looking forward to the day we can break down a heroic win for the UNT Mean Green.
Maybe next week. But for this week, we have to talk about how poorly this particular game went. And Sean, I want to come to you on this one. Break it down for me.
Yeah, so from the start, it wasn't looking great. Obviously, Missouri is an SEC team, but they've been coming off some tough losses themselves, just like we have. But yeah, early interception by Ani, that really killed our momentum early. We went down early. It was 31-7 going into halftime. We were able to scramble some sort of a comeback and put up some points late. But yeah, too many big plays hurt us, and not enough big plays on our end sealed the deal.
Yeah, I want to come back and touch on something that you just mentioned there. So UNT, 9 turnovers in 5 games, but they've been outscoring teams by 20 points in the second half. So it's really a tale of we start off slow and then we make our way back into the game, but I don't think our team is built that way. We have DeAndre Torrey, who's the 6th leading back in terms of rushing in the nation, but we can't run him when we're down by 28 points. So Sam, how do we kind of start off on the right foot? What's the key for this?
Well, we just got to start off strong. We've been making great plays downfield, so start off with a good play and don't throw it to the other team right off the bat. Try to just throw it anywhere other than the other team right off the bat.
Is it just Ani that's like, is it the quarterback play? Is that where it starts? Because I feel like, we finally had a 300-yard rush passing game this year, season after 2 back-to-back games of 100 yards passing. Is it all quarterback? Is that the issue?
As of right now, I believe so it is. Just from what we could tell, most of the turnovers have been interceptions. Mm-hmm. Sure, there was a fumble last game, but as of right now, we got to fix those interceptions.
Okay, so Sean.
I want to make a point real quick about those slow starts. Going back to this Missouri team, Coach Drinkwitz, he said before the game that there was no depth chart going into this game. They didn't know who we were going to play. This is the perfect opportunity for us to come out and make a statement from the get-go. And instead, we start off with fumbling drives, throwing interceptions that we don't look like we know what we're doing. It's just not what you want to see from a coach that's been here this long.
So Mean Green now 1-4 on the season, 0-2 conference play. Seth Luttrell in his 6th season here with us at UNT, and he has not done very well, is to put it mildly. And I think that what kind of encapsulated the season so far was the 2 number 14s on punt return, which cost us a penalty and then gave Mizzou a first down. Sean, how hot can this hot seat get?
Well, if our first game against UAB, 40-6 at home, that for first conference game was not enough to get him fired on the spot. It looks like he's getting a pretty long leash this season. We'll have to see how it is going into conference play, but it looks like he's I think it's likely he'll finish the season out if we can put together a few respectable wins here and there. But going forward, I think we need to look elsewhere for coaching services.
Sam, you agree on that point?
Yes, I do. We need to get him out soon.
Get him out. I think it's tough, right? Because he's on paper, the talent is there. I think for him to have a respectable season, and it's just not showing up. And I think the decision to start Reuter for the first few games and then have that not pan out is also a big point against him. You're the offensive mind, and you can't get anything done for the first few games. It makes it very difficult.
And he was the one that chose Reuter.
He was the one that chose Reuter over Ani, and now he's stuck with Ani, but it might be too little too late. So 1-4, we're having a really tough season. Sam, what's the upside to this team? If there's any kind of bright silver lining in this cloud, what is it?
Well, we just got to fix the small things, fix those turnovers, and we've been doing good passing. Last game, 300 yards passing. Mm-hmm. Just fix the little things, and we'll actually be a pretty bright team after that.
The tackling, that's a huge one. We let so many missed tackles go. KD Davis is everywhere on the field at once. He makes tackles from the secondary to the backfield. But he can't be the only one. I think that's a product of other guys not being able to finish plays.
See, I disagree. I think the defense is actually the bright point of this particular team. The offense has done them no favors by turning the ball over so many times, but they've gotten 9 turnovers themselves. It's a net
Forced
zero for
three
turnovers.
straight 3-and-outs in the third quarter there.
3 straight 3-and-outs in the third quarter to get them back in the game. They had a respectable game against SMU in the first half before the offense collapsed. I just don't think the offense has helped them out enough. I think the defense has actually played very well under Phil Bennett and been able to, get them at least in a position to make things competitive. The UNT Mean Green will be playing Marshall this Friday on CBS at home. But coming up next, how about them Cowboys? Stay tuned. The Dallas Cowboys ended up at 4-1 after the weekend with a strong win over NFC opponents, the New York Giants. And here to help me break down that game are my analysts, James Carroll and AJ Tellers. Gentlemen, how are we feeling today?
Yeah, pretty good. Excited for another Cowboys win.
James, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know you're a Giants fan.
Right, yeah.
That must have been tough.
You summed it up pretty well.
So it was a very good game overall. Dak's first game against the Giants at home. That same game last year was when he had that horrible ankle injury. James, kind of break down the game for us.
So it actually started out pretty tight. Definitely closer than what the final score was. Cowboys had some early turnovers on offense. The Giants defense actually kind of kept it close at first, and then that big bomb to CD Lamb is really it was really pretty. Even I had to appreciate it and that I think that really kind of set the tone for the game. Like, even when the Cowboys aren't playing their best, they're still able to beat soundly, which is a scary thought for other NFC teams, and especially my poor Giants and other division rivals. Obviously, you had the Giants injuries. I don't think that would have ended up changing like the end result, probably the magnitude of it. But yeah, it is. I don't think anybody can say that it's not the Cowboys division at this point.
I would agree. I think they've just basically solidified their position at the top of the NFC East, and it's going to come down to some late games against Washington to really kind of sort it all out. But they have done a great job of putting themselves in a strong position. Now, the play we just saw, Trayvon Diggs. Woo! What a monster. He is built different, AJ.
Yeah, he's really stepped up in year 2, and this is a defense that the last couple of years has really lacked those impact plays. And you have a guy that's taken charge, and not just the interception numbers, but you're essentially having conversations about offenses taking away that side of the field. I mean, the Cowboys for the first time in who knows how long have a shutdown corner that offenses now have to game plan against. That's game changer.
Did that interception lockup, defensive player of the year. He's got now have more interceptions than a number of NFL teams have just as an entire team.
He's the favorite. It's too early to give anybody a lock. I look at Myles Garrett and Trayvon Diggs, probably the two favorites right now. Diggs leading in interceptions, Myles Garrett leading in sacks. Going back to 2010, all but 2 defensive players of the year winners have been pass rushers. So the league definitely has handed that award to guys impacting the pass rush. A couple linebackers, Luke Kuechly won it. But while the track record goes against a defensive back winning it, I'd say definitely Trayvon Diggs is the favorite right now.
Well, there's not many defensive backs that have a year like he
No, there's
does.
not.
Fair.
Yeah, the two that won it were Gilmore and Troy Polamalu, who was a different breed.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we're at a very good spot now, 4-1 on the year, a solid hold on the NFC East. And looking at the rest of the schedule, guys, I don't think that there was a team that particularly made me scared. Maybe the Cardinals, but that's at week 17 when it's likely not to matter because the division will be sorted out anyway. So now we have to ask the question, are the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders or Super Bowl pretenders? How about you, James?
You know, I look at their schedule and kind of like you, I look down the list and I'm like, there's really no one here that I don't think they can beat. And I think they've proved to us that they can beat the teams they're supposed to beat. The Giants, they're supposed to beat them. They surprised, or Chargers are still kind of a mystery to me. I don't know how they're going to fully play out. But they beat them too, and they were probably supposed to at the time. What I'm looking for is that game against Kansas City. I forget what week it is exactly. I think it's a couple down the line.
I think it's right after the bye week, right?
I think you're right, yeah. That's the game I'm looking at. That's the game where I'm like, okay, you are, if you beat them or keep it close, you're set. You can compete for a Super Bowl. Their one loss on the year to the Buccaneers. They're a good team. I don't know that they've played another, besides the Chargers, another solid Super Bowl contender.
As my dad used to say, the great teams will beat the good teams and take care of business against the bad teams. So far, they've done that. I would put them as a great team. Yeah, AJ?
Yeah, they're a contender. Legitimately, they're a team that can make a run in the NFC playoffs. The NFC's wide open. I think that Kansas City game and that road game against the Vikings when the season started looked like 2 tough tests. Now those teams look beatable more than they were at the start of the year. But at the end of the day, this NFC playoff run looks very, very winnable for Dallas. You look at the good NFC West, only one of those teams are going to get a home game. Cowboys have a chance to make a deep run this year.
Very quickly, gentlemen, we have a lot of returning players coming off of injury, but it's almost one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. A lot of these guys, Gallimore, Gallup, DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence will play, but Gallup, how do you fit him in with somebody like, with all these people coming? Cedric Wilson's playing really well. How do you fit him back in?
It's tough. It's always great to have depth, even if there's really not a necessity for it. But I think when we saw Zeke get banged up, it's nice to have Tony Pollard. I think slotting in a 4th receiver is just it'll give Mike McCarthy and that offense peace of mind just to have that extra option where you could sub out Lamb or Cooper a snap here too.
Absolutely. James, you agree?
No, yeah, this is the definition of the problem you prefer to have. This is absolutely a good problem to have. Having too much talent, you're not sure where to slot people where. Like you said, having, just in case of injury.
Excellent. Well, coming up next, we have a little bit of NFL this or that. You won't want to miss this. Stick around. Welcome back to Sportszone. We're going to mix things up a little bit here, and instead of an analytical, we're going to have a little bit of a debate on this segment. And here to help me out are my analysts, AJ Tellers and Parker Smith. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
Pretty good.
Yeah, good to be back.
Excellent. Yeah, you're doing double duty today, and I appreciate that. Very quickly, the way this is going to work, I have a number of questions here with an or option, and they're all NFL related, fairly similar. My analysts are going to have about 30 seconds each to defend their argument. Y'all ready for this?
Can't wait.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Excellent. And they do not know what's coming, so this should be fun. All right, first question. Best division in the West, the AFC or the NFC, AJ?
NFC, with that expanded wild card, you have an opportunity. You said this day one of the show that we have a chance to see 4 potential playoff teams in that division. Most competitive, top to bottom, NFC West.
Parker?
I'm going to go AFC West. The Chiefs are definitely going to get it together. The Chargers look insanely good right now. Justin Herbert's throwing with some electricity in that arm right now, and I think those 2 teams that they could send to the playoffs might go farther than every single team in the NFC West.
Love it. So next, let's talk about those top teams in each division. Who's the better team in LA, Parker? The Chargers or the Rams?
I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one. I like Justin Herbert more than I like Matthew Stafford. That defense for the Rams is going to be good, but I'm going to take the young, mobile, electric quarterback over Matthew Stafford, who he looks good, but I don't think he's looking as good as Justin Herbert is right now.
Ooh, strong. AJ?
It's hard for me to go against Sean McVay. You look at a guy that did what he did with Jared Goff, limited at quarterback position. It's only week 6. I don't think we've seen the best of this offense with Matt Stafford and the Rams. Give Sean McVay a couple more weeks. I think this team's going to be a real Super Bowl contender at the end.
All right, so from best to the West to the worst on the East Coast. Who is the worst team in New York, the Giants or the Jets?
Definitely
The Jets are in the argument for the worst run organization in sports. It's hard to go away from the Jets. I mean, Sam Darnold wasn't a problem. We've established that. Zach Wilson has looked absolutely horrible at times. There's been flashes of greatness, but I mean, it's hard not to pick the Jets.
Parker?
I'm also going to go with the Jets. Okay, you know what? No, never mind. Because with Daniel Jones out, with Saquon Barkley out, with Kenny Golladay out, and everything like that going on in New York, I'm going to go with the Giants being worse with Mike Glennon as their starting quarterback.
I don't know if that's
their backup.
fair. You can't. I think a healthy
With
Giants
a
are better than a healthy Jets.
a healthy Giants are definitely better than the Jets, but as they're sitting right now, I'll take the Jets.
Okay. Well, teams aside, individual players now. This one should be a fun one. Who's the better Cooper, Parker? Amari Cooper or Cooper Kupp?
Amari Cooper, 100%. Because Cooper Kupp has Robert Woods there, and he has an overall much more sufficient offensive system than, well, I don't know about that, because the Cowboys do look really good on offense, but Cooper is the true number 1 in the Cowboys system, and he's been for his entire career, and Cooper Kupp's really sharing a number 1 role, so I'm going to go with Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I think Cooper Kupp can slide a little bit more into those shorter routes, getting yards after the catch. There's not a route you can't ask Amari Cooper to run. There's not a place on the field you can't line him up. I'm going with Amari on that one.
See, I'm going to disagree with y'all here because I think Cooper Kupp is actually the best receiver in the NFL. The things he can do with the ball in his hands is spectacular. We've seen him do multiple spin moves. You'll see it right here. He's wide open on his routes. You can't ask for him to do any more for the Rams than any other receiver in football. Look at this pass right here. Makes the pass, beats 2 players to the pylon. And Amari Cooper is good in those one-on-one, and he's a good routes, but with the ball in his hands, Cooper Kupp is just a different animal. So I think it's Cooper Kupp.
That's fair.
Now, this should be a good one. I like this one too. The unluckiest veteran quarterback. 2 quarterbacks that have had injuries and have lost starting spots multiple times. Is it Ryan Fitzpatrick or Andy Dalton, AJ?
If we're talking unlucky, I'm going Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, Andy Dalton has had his playoff games. He's had his opportunities. I mean, how many times has Ryan Fitzpatrick won the job early, either gotten hurt, somebody on the roster gotten hurt, or that team ends up drafting his replacement? He just hasn't been able to stick with one team. He's been able to stay in the league, but luck has not been able to allow him to stay with one organization.
Parker, what do you
I'm throwing you a wild card. I'm going neither. I'm going Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod
Taylor is the most unlucky quarterback. Every single time he steps on the field, he looks great. He looked great at the start of this year, and he got hurt again. We saw him last year in Los Angeles. Some doctor stuck a needle in his lung and got him out for the season. He got his job taken by Herbert. I'm going with Tyrod Taylor.
He's on the bill for, what, 3 generational quarterbacks, or at least franchise quarterbacks to take the job right after he's the fill-in?
Yeah.
I believe with Baker Mayfield with the Browns and Justin Herbert with the Chargers, and then he lost the gig in Buffalo to Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, yeah.
And well, he was looking pretty good with the Texans too, and then
He looked
gets
great.
injured.
That means Davis Mills is going to take off.
300
If the
yards and
pattern
3
holds,
touchdowns
he's
this
due
week.
for it. Yeah. Oh, he had what?
300 yards and 3 touchdowns
He
this
went
week
off
for
of that.
Davis
Did?
Mills. Yep.
Okay. So y'all like a little this or that?
That's a fun block.
I
It
like
is.
the fun ball. I think it
Yeah.
keeps you on your toes. Is there any other points y'all want to? Is there anything y'all felt very strongly about on those?
No.
The Jets.
The Jets. You really don't like the Jets that much.
You just look at the mistakes they've made. They could have drafted an offensive lineman, a weapon, and worked with Sam Darnold, but they sent him off and arguably went with a worse option in Zach Wilson. Time will tell. Time will tell.
That's understandable. That was a good segment. I like that one. We'll come back to that. But coming up next, what a wacky weekend of college football that was. Stay tuned. Back to Sports Zone. We had one of the wildest college football weekends that I can remember, and here to help me break it down and pick their craziest games are my analysts Mason Shepard and Jeremiah Russo. Gentlemen,
Yo, it was
Yeah?
insane. It
was something.
it was really something, man. It was crazy.
and I think this weekend kind of encapsulates why people love college football, because we had this happen not once, not twice, not three, but 4 times just
Oh,
this
yeah.
weekend. And you don't get that every day in the NFL. So I'm going to start off with my craziest game.
Gotcha,
And
go
it
for
was kind of one that some people weren't watching because of the Red River Showdown.
Yeah.
But Ole Miss versus Arkansas was a ridiculous game. It was a high-scoring game going back and forth all the way up until the 4th quarter, and then Ole Miss took the lead with 1 minute and 7 seconds left, and I thought it was over. It was a one-play bomb over the corner's head. The one thing you can't do with a minute left is get beat as a cornerback with a ball right over the top.
Yeah.
And then Arkansas got the ball back and drove down the length of the entire field and
Oh,
scored
God.
with no time left, and then decided to go for 2.
Because they're idiots. And it almost made me sick when they
And
scored.
I was like, I couldn't believe it, because I was like, you obviously don't have faith. You're telling everybody you don't have faith in your defense or your offense if you don't want to go to overtime against
Nope.
Ole Miss. And it was just, they went for 2 and they didn't get it. And they lost.
Thankfully.
No time on the clock.
yeah.
And so they were punished rightfully, in my opinion, for the hubris. And it was, I had one eye on this game and one eye on Texas OU, because I could not take, if I had 4 or 5 eyes, I could have used 4 or 5 TVs.
Right.
So Mason, that was mine.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Oh, God. College football fans, let me talk to you. You know, I'm a Longhorns fan, and we played OU this past weekend. Or should I say, we choked to OU this last weekend, and it was terrible. I mean, Texas, we put up 38 points in the first half, and then we only put up 10 points in the second half. We were dominant. Casey Thompson had a great game, 20 for 34, 388 yards, 5 touchdowns. But we just crumbled, and we just lost steam in the second half. I don't know whether we got comfortable, whether the OU defense was just that good on Bijan Robinson, but I won't give them that much credit. It was just so disappointing. And then when they exchanged mediocre Rattler for Caleb Williams, and Texas has always had trouble with dual threat quarterbacks, and when he came in the game and Texas's defense wasn't being a defense, it hurt me to my soul. It was terrible.
I think it's safe to say Spencer Rattler's chances of winning the Heisman are roughly
Let's
equivalent to
say
the
that
amount of
draft
TDs
stock
that he
after
threw.
that is going
Oh,
to
that-
tank
that-
a
that's over with.
little
Yeah,
bit.
that's
on
over
this
with.
one, but that's all
I
right.
believe the hype around him has died down just a
Oh,
smidgen.
just a little bit.
It should have. He's not impressive at all. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that have come through OU, and then look at Spencer Rattler. He gets rattled easily, no pun intended. He's just
That's true.
not impressive. He's
It's just one of those cases where he was just a little overhyped coming
He's
into
like
the
the
season.
bowl of oatmeal. He's like Steel Oats. If Steel
wrong
Oats was
with
a
Steel
quarterback,
Oats oatmeal?
he's Steel Oats if that was a quarterback.
This is a sports show, not a food critique show.
Now I'm hungry.
We can talk oatmeal after
And
the
you
show.
just say that 'cause
I'm
you
gonna have
hungry.
some Steel Oats oatmeal after this.
Okay, sports. Jeremiah,
All
what was
right.
your craziest game?
My crazy game, I'm going to say right now, the Red River Showdown, game of the year. Hands down, easily.
Okay.
Second, following up, is going to be my game, which is going to be the Bama and A&M. The number one team choking, I would say. You know what? Offense wins games, defense wins championships. And you know what? Right now, the defense for Bama, they choked. And what led to that was obviously the big pass interference that set up the game-winning field goal. I mean, looking at the stats that I already just showed right here, you have video game numbers, 522 yards and 300-plus yards in passing, going crazy. You have Bryce Young going 28 for 48, throwing 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns. The same with Calzada. And, I mean, you know, just a great game all in all, you know, just to see, you know, Bama is human. They can lose a game. This is kind of a shock. And, you know, that was just, I think, my personal best is going to be that game for sure.
And I think what made that game particularly crazy is that it was touted as one of the games of the season going at the start of the season, right?
And the
Because we were
best with
thinking
that,
it was
too.
2 undefeated teams
Yes.
coming in. It was maybe number 1 versus number 3 because everyone was expecting a lot of things out of A&M.
Yeah.
And then A&M drops 2 games, and then the expectations are none.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you look at Bama, you know, their streak was snapped of 100 games winning against all unranked opponents. And now
Yeah.
you're looking at this, you're like, what the heck is going on? How are we losing to A&M, who now jumped up in the rankings to 21?
Yeah.
You know, being unranked now to here.
And the craziest thing about all of this is that our games just did not even include Penn State versus
No.
Iowa, which was number
Oh
3 versus
my.
number 4,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And we didn't even include that in our craziest games. And that was a game, too. That one went
Yeah.
into overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Iowa had to beat Penn State on a field goal in overtime.
I think it's just because we all know how those teams are when it gets to like later in the season, they fizzle out, especially Penn State. They're just not reliable. And I'm interested to see what Iowa can do.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 4 turnovers, that's kind of questionable, and your quarterback is throwing about a
That's
30,
mean green turnover numbers.
That's some, let's just say, that was some Jace Ruder action out there. You know, no, not to throw some shade on our own team, but
I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some more college football. Thank you very much for tuning in to Sportszone. We broadcast every Tuesday, Thursday on Frontier 46 and Charter 192 and online. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next, NTTV Nightly News.